Monica, thank you again for joining the new podcast. Sorry. You're founder and owner of Innovative Endodontics, board certified endodontic practice with 2 locations in Charleston. Uh, Tufts Dental School graduate, 5 years veteran in the United States Navy, board of certified endodontics with a master's of science in dentistry from MUSC. I'm sure I'm missing a whole lot, but we'll get to uncover a little bit of that throughout our conversation today. Again, we're so happy that you're here with us today. Just to break the ice a little bit, you know, you're based in Charleston. You have a family there. What is the thing about living and working in that part of South Carolina that people who have not been there would never guess? Let's
Yeah,
just
sure. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So it's good to kind of expand horizons and meet new people. So thanks for having me today. So I actually grew up in northern New Hampshire, and my husband grew up in Maine. So we grew up in the north of the north, and so we had some very cold winters, lots of snow in my past. So when I had the opportunity to come to Charleston, it was literally life changing because I recognized that we could live in a much nicer climate, didn't have to shovel snow 3 times a day. And anybody who's ever visited Charleston, the charm, the city, the food, I mean, it's one of those places where sometimes you go and you never leave, which was very true for us. So we were brought here with my endodontic residency at the Medical University of South Carolina, and we loved it. So we stayed, and a lot of other people have too. But if you visit, just be careful because you might not leave.
I've been through Charleston and North Carolina. I visited a few places there. I'm currently watching. I come from the hospitality industry, so I'm currently watching Top Chef,
I
which
am.
their season is in North Carolina. I have a very good friend competing
Oh,
in the
which one?
competition. Rhoda.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so
We're
she's
Top Chef fans too. So
okay. Awesome, awesome. Well, I kind of know a little bit of the scoop, but I'm not gonna ruin the surprise. But it's a phenomenal season, and I'll tell you, learning more about North Carolina has been quite impressive. I mean, it's a beautiful landscape, so I'm sure you enjoy your time there. What is the day to day, for you in North Carolina? Let's say, what is your life with? I know you have kids. You mentioned in your website, I think that you have a dog, Baxter. What
yeah.
is your day to day before you go into the practice? How is that? How do you balance, let's say, family and life, professional life?
Yes. Well, isn't that just the daily, the balance? So mornings are chaotic around here. So we have 2 children, a 9-year-old son Isaac and our 6-year-old daughter Faith. And so they're, just wrapping up third grade and kindergarten. So it's, the morning hustle of getting everybody dressed and neat and ready and out the door. So it's always like a little tornado in the morning. But I'm very blessed to have like happy, healthy kids, and they're in a great school. And so, little chaos in the morning, but then I get to take a deep breath before kind of diving into work. So, no complaints. I wouldn't have it any other way. Otherwise it might be a little boring around here.
Right. So you graduated from a Tufts Dental School in summa cum laude. Um, you went straight into the Navy, right, for 5 years. Most people would have gone into private practice, immediately. What made the military the right move for you?
Well, truthfully, it was the cost of dental school that really was quite persuasive. So I remember it because I got the bill for my very first year of dental school, and it was $92,000 for 1 year. And this was back in 2006. No, no, no. This was, yes, yes. So, like, long time ago and that expensive. And so, of course, I'm like, who can pay this for me? Because that was a scary bill, and that was only one of the years. So I started researching, opportunities, and so the military is one of the very well known options to help pay for school. And so I don't have, an extensive military history in my family, but I think I was at least financially savvy enough to say this is going to be a very big bill one day. And so I signed up for their scholarship to help pay for dental school. And as life goes, it was a fantastic opportunity for me, not only from that financial standpoint, but what more rewarding environment can you be in than serving active duty military members every day? I had fantastic mentors that really welcomed me into their community, and I had expressed an interest in endodontics, which is, for most people that don't know, it's the specialty of dentistry that focuses on root canal therapy only. So I had expressed that interest when I joined the military. And so my mentors very quickly, I say, threw me in to endodontics and made me use, the microscopes and the technology, and made me do more and more cases so that I could get comfortable. So it started out as a financial decision, but then it really, at the end of the day, was a really great environment. When you're launching out of dental school, you're still a little bit slow. You don't have the efficiency that you want at that stage. And so the military environment was very low pressure, right? If you jump right in a private practice, there's expectations for how much you produce per day and how much you do. And so I was largely, not, impacted by that. I was able to just do my care in cases and not feel that same level of pressure. So I think it was a fantastic environment, and I learned a ton about leadership, right? So the
Yeah.
military, of course, known for leadership, and I got some fantastic foundational roots about how I wanted to be a leader moving forward in my career. So all of those things, the Navy was a blessing. And, now I get to be in the Charleston community, and we stay very closely connected with our veterans. So we work with the VA, they refer patients to us. So we have that opportunity to stay connected. I do free root canals for veterans every Veterans Day. So it's an opportunity now for me to kind of stay engaged with that community. So I was very blessed that I think the Navy found me, but it was a great first step in my career for sure.
Amazing. Well, that's inspiring to hear, for sure. I mean, you were deployed in to Afghanistan. Uh, without going to too many details, but what would you say that experience you take from that experience that maybe, and you told us a little bit about leadership, but were there any aspects into how you practice now that you took from that experience in Afghanistan?
Well, I think just deploying to Afghanistan and being, really in it, right?
Hmm.
Really put life into perspective. So the things that you thought maybe mattered before you went overseas,
All right.
you start to question, does this really matter? Who matters? What matters? What am I focusing on? What am I spending my time on? And I think that type of environment makes you just recognize, number one, all of your blessings in life, right? Like you're just so grateful for the country that we just happen to be born in, the world that we just happen to be raised in. So those blessings were very apparent being over there. But then also it just put into perspective, like these are things that matter moving forward. And maybe some things I thought did before I could let go of. So I think it was a perspective thing. And so I've always kind of held that close moving forward, that we're very lucky and blessed, and we need to make the most of every situation. Some people can go to Afghanistan and it be a dreadful experience and the worst 7 months of their life, and they can't wait to get home. And I mean, that's one way to look at it. But I said, okay, I'm going to be here. What can I get out of this experience? I made fantastic friendships. I read more books than I could have imagined I could read in 7 months. I worked out. I got healthy. I made use of the time. And so I think,
Excellent.
like everything in life, it's what you make of it. So for me, it
Yeah.
was a really great life experience.
Yeah. Absolutely agreed. Um, you know, uh, so you went through Afghanistan, you come back. I know you started Innovative Endodontics in 2018. What was that transition, right, from being deployed, coming back, and then going into opening your practice? What was that time like, and maybe how do you say, all right, it's time for me to open my own practice, right?
Yes. Well, so for me, I actually had an interest in endodontics like while I was in dental school. So in dental school, I had the passion for it, but I approached one of my best mentors, Dr. Charles Rankin, who I adore and who passed away recently. And I had approached him and I had said, should I apply to endo residency right out of school? Because sometimes people do that right out the gate. They go into a specialty program. Other times people work as a general dentist and come back to it. And his advice to me was, you know, he felt that the very best specialists were once a very good general dentist. So you could see the whole picture. You could, you weren't tunnel visioned in your specialty. You could see the big picture as a general dentist. And so that's why I went into the Navy and I was a general dentist for those 5 years. But I continue to love endo. And so after those 5 years of obligation to the Navy, I had to decide, do I want to pursue my endodontic career and training in the Navy, which I could have done, or did I want to get out of the Navy and pursue it in the private sector? And my husband and I were hoping to set down roots and start a family. And so we did make the decision for me to get out of the Navy at that point in time. And so we ended up at MUSC in Charleston. And so I was finishing up my residency and I was essentially looking for an opportunity to practice. Most people graduate residency and they take what we call an associating doctor position. So they go and they work in a practice, and they kind of get experience and all of those things. And Charleston, being a pretty small market, there weren't any associating opportunities. So most of the endodontists in the community were like solo practicing providers. They couldn't support another full time endodontist. And so my option was we move again, to find an opportunity to associate somewhere, or alternatively, I open my own practice. So I like to say that, I didn't always know I wanted to be a business owner, or a practice owner, but that was the push I needed, I guess, to do so. And so I took the leap and I started a practice at a residency, which is not super common, because we're
Right.
largely unprepared for the business aspect of dentistry. But for us, I felt strongly always that if I treated people well, I would be successful. And so, I said, let's do it. And so that's kind of how the business found me, I like to say.
I love it. I love it. We talk to many, dentist professionals, also people in the med spa, doctors, and, they go through the process, they go to school, they come out, but they always say the same thing. You're never ready for that moment where, because you're essentially a business owner, right? Basically, so that part is completely, you're completely oblivious and unprepared. What were those struggles? Maybe did you have any adjustments? I know that, listen, probably the military gave you a lot of structure, right? And you said something in your last sentence that, obviously I believe that with culture, right? When you treat people the right way, everything can be, you can make it happen. But what were there some of those challenges that you experienced,
Yeah.
as you ended into or engaged in this career?
Yes. Well, for all of the formal academia that I had after high school, I had 4 years of college, 4 years of dental school, a 1 year AGD residency program, and then a 2 year endo program. I mean, that's like 13 years of post high school education. Very, very, very minimal exposure to any business acumen whatsoever. So it's, I think, a shortfall of our current practice, our current education system in terms of the medical dental profession. We're just not prepared for that. And so when I decided to open, there was a lot of self learning. I read a lot. I listened to a bunch of books and podcasts, and but I think understanding that I needed to find a mentor, right? Somebody who could teach and show. Like, I didn't need to make the same mistakes that somebody else already made. I didn't need to learn that exact same lesson the same way. So understanding that I wanted to put myself around people that were maybe 5, 10+ steps ahead of me, right? If I wanted to own multiple locations, then I needed to start to have conversations with people who have already done that. So I think a big part of my learning was recognizing that I could accelerate my learning if I put myself around the right people. And so I've continued to always try and do that as I've grown my practice. And so I've been very fortunate. And, people who are successful really want to help other people be successful. So those people want to mentor you and want to share their experience. And so
Yep.
they're not all that hard to find because they're just gracious, and happy to share what they know. So for me, I think that was the biggest part, was just mentorship. And now I'm in a position where, I would love to mentor other people. So I'm mentoring young associate doctors in my practice, but I'm also like, trying to get out there. I wrote a book in January, which I published. And the purpose of that book was really, it's the resource that I wish I had had, right?
Yeah.
When I opened my practice, there were a million questions and things that I had to figure out on my own. And so I wrote the book from basically the perspective of, I wish I had known this 8 years ago. And so why not share that with others? So now I'm in a position to continue not only my mentorship from others, but to also start to mentor people.
Love it. That's amazing. Well, yeah, you said something that it was challenging for you to, be a dental associate somewhere, planning even to move from the state. Uh, Opportunity strikes. You never know how when it's going to come. You went for it, and now you have two locations. You
Actually,
actually
3 locations.
three locations.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now you're actually offering that you didn't have at your hands. Now you're able to host several associates there, so they can get into the practice. Uh, quite quite a turn, I would say. Um, a little bit about what I know about endodontics, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I know that a lot of the patients that you receive are referrals from dentists, right? Is this still the trend, or let's say, are people educating themselves more and actually doing research and picking their own,
Yeah.
um, specialists? Is there anything changing in that way, in that dynamic? Let's just
Yeah.
say.
That's a fantastic question. So, as a specialist, historically, it has always been a referral based business. So, patients, wake up with a toothache, they go to their general dentist. Their general dentist diagnoses that they need a root canal. And if they don't want to do it in their practice, they send them out to a specialist of their choosing. And so, for the most part, historically, patients have received a little referral and they go where their dentist has told them to go. And that's still a very big part of the referral strategy today. But patients are becoming very savvy consumers, which is not surprising considering the change of our landscape. And so, they don't always go where they are sent now. So, what they do is they go online and they assess all of the specialists in the area. And they look at Google reviews and what are other people saying about the practice. And maybe they elect to go somewhere else, or they research who's in network with their insurance and who isn't. And so the landscape is definitely changing. I would say even over the last few years, the number of patients that were referred somewhere else and come to us, it is definitely increasing. It's becoming a much bigger portion of our patients in the practice, which is really exciting because then our growth is not just dependent upon individual practice referrals. Now we can have a larger community. I've always been a little bit jealous of general dentists that can market to everybody. And that doesn't work exactly the same because until you need a root canal, you don't need a root canal, So it's
Right.
a little bit different from a marketing standpoint, but there's certainly far more opportunity now than there ever has been in the past. And so that's exciting for me because I understand and believe in marketing. I think there's also some hesitancy amongst dentists and specialists about marketing. They don't really know if it works, or they don't, they have some skepticism about it versus I understand that marketing is a science, and if you do it very consistently, you're going to have great outcomes. So for me, it's exciting to see the tide change because that means that there's only more opportunity for us.
Right. Um, I saw something in LinkedIn. I think it was a post that said, or something that commented like, a committed team is the single greatest determinant of whether a practice grows or stalls, right? What experiences inside Innovative Endodontics put that sentence in your head?
Yes. Well, our absolute number one resource, and I think this is true for every business, but certainly ours, um, is our people. our
Hmm.
team is the number one most valuable resource. They are going to make or break the business. And that's because I can't be everywhere, right? Like, so I'm not answering the phone. I'm not the first impression of the patient talking to the practice. I'm not the person that welcomes them. I'm not the assistant who takes the radiographs. Like, there's so many people that impact that patient experience. And I'm just a part of it. I'm a small part of it. And so I recognized very early on that I needed to have a team that believed in our mission, that believed in the same core values, to have that same feel and experience across every team member that the patient interacts with. And so I absolutely believe that. I think that if we can surround ourselves with A players and top talent and people who are motivated, that's what takes businesses to the next level. I can have all the ambition in the world, but if I don't have the people behind me, it's never going to happen. So I am very
Absolutely.
proud and blessed to have the team that I have.
Amazing. And listen, it doesn't come with easy work.
Yeah.
Already three dental practices, right? In Charleston, right? Uh, do you, let's say, hold, any structure as far as development in your staff? Like, do you have, let's say, a strategy around, staying in, let's say, close to the pulse of each of your practices and saying, wait a minute, we need to get better here. We need to get better. How do I assist? Is this something that comes up, or is this something that continuously, it's evolving? How do you approach that aspect of development when inside your practice?
Well, I will say that I think the very best organizations in the world are incredibly focused on continued training. So
Hmm.
it is not about like here's your role and responsibility when you join a practice and then, that's the end of the road. That's the beginning of the road. And so ensuring that your team has an adequate, really strong onboarding, I think is first and foremost what separates most practices from others. Most of the time team members are kind of thrown in and expected to figure it out. And that's a recipe, unfortunately, for dissatisfaction on both sides of that equation. But then once they're in the practice, like we have to look for continuous opportunities to improve. And so I'm a very big and firm believer in intentional team meetings. I think sometimes people look at meetings, the word meeting can make people's eyes roll back and it's going to be boring. But if they're very intentional and focused, it's an opportunity for the whole team to come together. And so we do ours on a quarterly basis with one big full day team training at the beginning of the year in January. And it's an opportunity to realign. It's an opportunity to review our mission, our core values. What did we accomplish last year? What are we aiming to do this year? Like, if we don't define the path for them of what we're trying to achieve, then we're not going to get there because people don't know what path to take. So it's my role as the leader to continuously share the vision and share their role in that vision. And so I think that those opportunities to come together as a team, because you can never work on the business when you're in the business. So the day-to-day chaos, patients in and out, that is not an opportunity to improve the practice because you're just in it. And so you have to plan that intentional time outside of patient care, close the phones, close the doors, and like, what are we working on as a team? And so I've found that to be incredibly valuable over time. And the great thing about our organization as we're growing is that because we're adding locations and we have goals for more, that means the organization grows. So the org
Hmm.
chart, the hierarchy, it's going to change and develop. And so now it's not, most dental assistants join a practice and like that's where they are in their career in the business because there's not always somewhere else to go. But now that we're a growing organization, now I'm going to need clinical trainers. I'm going to need regional managers. I'm going to
Right.
need, right? So our opportunity for personal growth in our organization is changing rapidly, which is really exciting because people can join and say, hey, I'd really love to achieve this. And so we can now create a defined career path of like, if that's your goal, then we need to accomplish these steps to help you get there. And so I think that's really exciting, as a part of our growth structure is that my team can grow. And I had multiple team members purchase homes this past year, which was like,
Amazing. Yeah.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because you're achieving personal goals. And so I think that's what's exciting about growth. We have the opportunity to impact communities. We get to save more teeth. I get to impact my personal individual team. And so there's growth on all levels. So super exciting. But yes, training, continued training is foundational and needs to be a part of the growth process, or else you're growing chaos, which nobody wants to do.
I love it. So I think there's a tagline. I mean, your tagline is changing the reputation of the root canal, right? Um, what do most people get wrong about your specialty? Let's just say, and where does this shift come from, right?
Yes. Well, if you ask anyone, right, a root canal, what do you know about root canal? Everyone has those same, the myths are pervasive. It's going to be
Yeah.
terrible. It's going to be painful. It's going to be 5 hours. It's going to be, I'm going to have to be on bed rest. Like, right, people have these perceptions.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because a root canal is nothing like that whatsoever. We actually get people out of pain. So if you come in with pain, you leave with significantly less pain. So we are
Hmm.
helping people out of pain every day. Procedures, we can get you so numb. Like that's our skill is to get you super numb. And so it should feel like getting a filling. So we tell patients if you can go to your dentist and get a filling, then getting a root canal is nothing more than that. We can do treatments in an hour, in and out, back to work, no downtime. So we do have to kind of battle those perceptions for patients coming in. And there are a lot of people in general that are very anxious in the dental chair. And so if you're anxious to get your teeth cleaned, then you're really going to be anxious to get a root canal. So we have to overcome a lot of that. But that's how that motto of changing the reputation of the root canal was born, is because I do believe that we are doing that each and every day with each and every patient. And across our 3 locations, we have over 1,600 5-star reviews at this point, which is which is pretty awesome because most people don't want to write a review for anything, never mind a
Yeah.
root canal.
Yeah.
But the patients, the expectation is exceeded each and every day, and so they feel compelled to write and share, and they get to help another patient who probably feels the same way. So, yeah, it's we're one tooth at a time, one patient at a time, trying to change the world,
Yeah.
and I think we're making progress. So it's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about innovation and technology within your space. Uh, Clinical side, you have Zeiss microscopes, J Morita cone beaming imaging.
Mhm.
How much has that technology in the operatory itself changed the work you do compared to what you trained, let's say, on MUSC?
Yes. So the dental microscope is probably the greatest technological advancement in endodontics. It has changed visibility, incredibly, right? So most people think of their dentist and they wear the loops on top of their head that magnify their tooth, 4 times or so. And our microscopes can magnify teeth like 20 plus times, right? So, I mean, it is amazing what you can see. And there are different brands. I did start out using Zeiss. I now use Zumax microscopes in a couple of my practices. And so the microscope itself has just changed everything about endodontics. So, first of all, ergonomics. So, most of the time when you see a dentist, they're like leaning over into a patient, which is not good for your back and for your
Mhm.
career. About 50% of dentists have back issues.
Wow.
So the nice thing about a microscope is we get to sit straight and
That's right.
upright. And even though we're working down here, we're looking straight and have better
Wow.
posture. So
Okay.
that's really fantastic for our health of our bodies over time. But being able to see, because the details of the anatomy of teeth are very intricate and tiny. And so the microscope is everything. So I was fortunate to start training with the microscope in my time in the Navy. And so by the time I got into residency, I had some foundational understanding because it's a very steep learning curve, very hard to learn to work within a microscope. It's your brain wants to move this way and you're in a mirror and it's very hard. But then
Yeah.
once you get it, like I couldn't, if you asked me to do a root canal without one now, I mean, I would feel, I'd be nervous, right? Because yeah, I'm so reliant. So microscopes, number one. And then cone beam, so 3-dimensional imaging has absolutely changed dentistry as well. And when I was in residency at MUSC, it was available technology. we had some older generation instructors that hadn't used it in their own practices. And so I remember that we were kind of teaching them how to use the three-dimensional imaging because, of course, the younger generation embraces it quicker. And so we were using it only in specific circumstances in residency. And when I got out in a private practice, I very quickly started to take a three-dimensional image on all of my patients and cases, and it changed everything because your tooth is a three-dimensional object, and so we kind of relate it to a regular x-ray at the dentist is like looking at an apple, a picture of an apple in a paper, and then our three-dimensional image is us holding the apple and able to turn it and look at it in every dimension. And so it helps with diagnosis, so appropriate diagnosis and treatment planning. It's a roadmap for your case. So, like, you know exactly going into the tooth how many canals there are. You know what the anatomy looks like. You know what the length of the canals is. So it's like literally your roadmap to the case. And so it certainly saves you time because you're not hunting around for something that might not be there, or you're not going off course because you know where everything is. And so it's the values for the patient, right? So the value is to have an appropriate diagnosis, a fast and effective treatment plan, and then we do find additional pathology often. So even though they were referred for one tooth, our imaging is so fantastic that a lot of times we're seeing something else that we can identify early. And so then we're avoiding them waking up with pain and swelling in the future. So I would say, those two specific technologies are just indispensable for every endodontist.
Would you say the adoption throughout, all endodontics, practices, is it welcoming? I mean, are people in your industry, peers in your industry, all of them are adopting technology, or is there resistance when it comes to this? Are people still, hunching their backs to to do root
Well,
canals?
yeah, I think adoption of technology is usually staged, right? There's going to be the people who are on the train immediately, they're first
Yeah,
in the row and they're just going to run with it. And then there are the ones that want it to be proven over time with lots of people and let any failures fall out, and then they jump on the train. So I think that's true across every industry. I think dentists tend to be conservative people and a little risk averse. So I think that they like to see, I mean, we love us a study, show
yeah,
us the study
yeah.
to make sure that it's a worthwhile investment. We want to see all of that. So I do think it varies person to person, but some of these technologies are just at this point an absolute given. Like I cannot imagine an endodontist not practicing with a microscope. Although, the older trained ones that trained without it for years and years, they are selectively using it. So they might not be using it from the minute the case starts to the end, like I am and the younger generations are. So they're selective with its use. And then even with the three-dimensional CBCT, there are still some providers that rely mostly on their two-dimensional imaging and they don't take a cone beam on every case. So there is, even though it's embraced, I think the degree to which it's embraced in individual practices does still have some variety. And then there's new technology, of course, coming out every day. And I would say, just like every industry, there have been things that have worked and things that haven't in the past. And so there are going to be, some people that are just waiting to make sure that it is what it is promised to be. You know, I think the foundational microscoping cone beam is a no-brainer at this point. Everybody embraces it. But the new things that are coming out, it's like, well, what problem are we trying to solve sometimes?
Yeah.
Because root canals are incredibly predictably successful, like 92% successful. And so they
Hmm.
come out with these different gadgets, it helps with this and it helps with that. And you're like, but we're already really doing well. So
Right.
what problem are we solving? So that's
Yeah.
where I think it's an interesting pivot in the market because now people are creating problems maybe
Yeah.
to solve, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So outside of the operatory space, let's say talking more about the operation itself, or let's say the business side of it. Is there any specific tool that you're maybe using, any piece of technology that you're using right now that you say you couldn't live without with right now?
So certainly, I mean, well, everybody functions under a dental software, right? It's like a
Mm-hmm.
practice management software, which is, how the practice lives and breathes on the day to day, the scheduling, the billing, all of that. So I don't think anyone could function without that. I certainly think that enhanced patient communication is a massive, adjunct to our industry because first of all, no one answers their phone. Like,
Yeah.
so calling patients to try and confirm appointments and those kind of things, like you're very lucky to get someone on the phone. So having, the text capability to go back and forth with patients, to share resources in that way, I think has been a big game changer. So, and practice management systems are, growing over time. So they're starting to add in, new features. So there's ways, for AI to help us maybe write our notes and our reports. And so there's more and more that's coming out routinely to try and make our lives easier and solve those challenges from a practice management standpoint. So it's exciting because I think we're just at the beginning of some of that technology and that side of things. So anything that can make our life easier, I think is certainly worth exploring.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of AI, obviously, I would say the last 4 years, basically, since we got, discovered into Chat GPT. I mean, AI has been pretty much for a long time, but, let's say the consumer has gotten their hands on. How has that adoption been for you? Maybe on a personal basis, and then integrating that, into, may say, your practice. How has that looked like? Are you a fan? Are you
Yeah.
are you cheering on for AI, or you have your skepticisms? How is that playing out for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand, I think, I hope, the power of AI, right? Like I'm just like this is a turning point in our lives and in what we have available to us. And so I think I'd be a fool to not embrace it to some capacity and to recognize the impact that it could have on my business and me personally. That being said, I am not naturally inclined to be that person. So what I mean by that, like as an example, like if my printer breaks, there's no world where I can fix the printer. Like,
Right.
like I'm looking
Yeah.
around, like who can help me because that is just not how I'm inclined to function. So I am personally intimidated by AI, just in that I'm fearful that I'm not going to embrace it in the way that I should, and that I'm going to miss out on so much that it has to offer. So I'm keenly aware that I want to embrace it. I just have to really figure out the appropriate way and the best way to incorporate it into my business. Of course, I've chatted on Chat GPT and great thinking partner and, thinking through ideas and concepts. And I find that incredibly valuable. So I do that a lot personally. In the dental space, as I alluded to, it's starting to have its impact. So, now there's AI like X-ray assessment, right? So these AI functions are coming in and identifying cavities, or they're identifying bone loss and things that help from a diagnosis standpoint. So that's very much alive and well in the market already. In our world, they're starting to help with notes, right? So I would spend hours and hours and hours a week writing my final reports to send these notes back to doctors, and I wanted them to be thorough and accurate and all of that. And so that took significant time. So having these AI capabilities to help write those notes, is definitely going to change the landscape in that regard. So that's super exciting. And then just all of those add-on adjuncts to the dental software, all those different things that are just going to escalate, our ability in the day and make use of our time. So I'm super excited about it. I'm not fearful of it, aside from I know that it's not my personal strength. So like as the owner, I need to figure out, how do I have an AI person on my team? Do I, right? Like I don't have to be the person that knows it if that's not my strength, but I know that I have to figure out how to incorporate it successfully into the practice moving forward. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. No, I think you are exactly where most of business owners are. I think that the curve is we're around 17% adoption in business. They're saying that by end of 2017 will be around 25%. So overall, we still got a while to go, but you can see that the interest is there. Like everybody understands, yes, we need to embrace AI. You said something very key, right? It's like what problem are you trying to solve, and I think that's the way to really approach it. There's a lot of tools out there and noise, and you can get caught up in that, but you really have to evaluate the organism, your organization, right? And where does AI can really fit there. Just curious, because as I interview many owners of practices, uh, they tell me that a lot of their patients are coming in more educated because of AI, right? They have a diagnosis or they have a problem and they're already super well informed. I'm curious to see if you see a lot of that in your practice. Are people coming in and kind of meeting you where you're at because they are more familiarized with the language? And the other is, have you found people that have found you through Chat GPT that mentioned you or something like that? How is that working out?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people that like don't want to know about root canals. Like they don't want to understand what I'm doing in there.
Right.
Like they know they need it. They're gonna get it done. So they're gonna be kind of the engineered brain people that want to know every
Yeah.
teeny tiny step. And then there are gonna be
Hmm.
people that the less they know,
Just fix me.
yeah,
Yeah.
fix it. So I haven't personally seen a huge increase in patient knowledge.
Hmm.
Certainly people are starting to use AI as like a Google. So now instead of going to Google, they're going there to learn more. So I think that will continue to occur and happen. But I still feel like I have to educate the vast majority of my patients pretty significantly. So I haven't seen a huge impact in their dental knowledge. Whether that's because they want to or not, I'm not sure. But the other half of the question was what reminds me, what was the other
the,
part of the
the
question?
other question, are people finding you through these
Oh, yes.
chats?
Yes.
Have you noticed cases that, oh, I was asking ChatGPT and that they recommended your practice?
So great question. So we actually, in part knowing that AI is having a big impact on people finding local businesses, we are in the process currently right now of like redefining our digital marketing campaign.
Yeah.
So we've signed on with a new fantastic company called Rise DDS, and they're helping us revamp the website. So we're gonna have one website for the three locations, and they have an intentional focus on what is
Yep.
AI looking for. So now it's
Okay.
not just Google, it's not just, the traditional SEO. They have those metrics.
Correct.
So
Yep.
we are embracing that. I think a lot of certainly the dental community is not aware of kind
No.
of those algorithms or metrics. And
Correct.
so I'm keenly aware. It's not for me to know what those things are, but to align with people who do. And so yes, I'm aware and investing in that from our end so that we do show up on those modalities. And I'm excited because people are using it more and more every day.
Yeah. No, you are well ahead of the curve, Monica. I think that the number one problem that we are solving right now is the problem that most business owners think they or are not aware that they have. And it's
Mm,
since we're moving more into this chat and people are getting more familiarized into speaking with their large language models as they were their assistants,
mhm.
you need to exactly create that digital footprint, right, in order for those chats to recover you. It's not the same as Google. So I think that you're being very diligent and getting ahead of the curve. I talked to many business owners, and they have no idea. It's probably 1 out of 20 that are actually even aware of this. So very good. Let's say if you were a young endodontist graduating this year and opening a practice in 2006, what would you build differently from what you built in when you started in 2018?
That's like a really great question. In reflecting back, like I've learned a lot of lessons, but I think my foundation of what I built was very solid in that, I I just recognized that as a business owner, I'm going to be successful if I treat people well. So that means individual patients, team members, referring offices. And I think that was at the heart of everything that I did. So I don't know that, I mean, I don't, maybe there's some technological advancement types of things that weren't around 8 years ago, but I think foundationally, I recognize the most important things and I didn't get distracted by different gadgets or different dangling things to make me look at those things. So I don't know that I would have any dramatic changes. I would invest in my team from day one, numero uno. I would invest in marketing, which I've always believed in. And so I think if you invest in your people and marketing, you're going to do well. Now the actual tactics for marketing, et cetera, might be changing over time, but I think the foundation's the same.
Absolutely. Let's think about if you had a magic wand, uh,
Mm.
what would be that thing that you, let's say, create or that you would fix? Where would that piece of technology can be, plugged in into your operation and help you, go quicker, faster, or make your operation better? Do you have something that comes into mind?
So along the same line of talking about people, because I think that's, the most important thing is the people, is
Yeah.
that I kind of feel like the talent acquisition process in dentistry, and this is probably true for most industries, is a bit broken, right? Like we're using the same Indeed forums, we're using the same job descriptions, we're using the
Yeah.
same hiring processes that maybe we have been for a long time. But we're expecting to hire these magical people that we want on our team.
Yeah.
And so for me, who is not willing to settle for, B players, right? I want the best of the best. I want talented people. I, find I'm disappointed, right? In when we're looking for that select special hire, who comes across to us is often underwhelming. And I think that if there could be a talent acquisition resource, an ability to really kind of plug and find those people that could change the trajectory of my business, like that's what I would want the most. I think day to day operations, the actual dentistry, we're in a great place technologically. But I just feel like that's a big gap in our industry. And I know if I can have one magical hire, it can change everything. And so
Yeah.
that would be my suggestion of what would be a magic one.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds fair enough. I think I've heard that already from one more person in the side of talent acquisition. That definitely, and it's true, right? You bring the right people in, the right synergy. Sometimes you have these specific gaps, and if you're able to understand what those gaps are, and you fill that gap, then the
Mhm.
whole place runs perfect. So, um, let's say a little bit of foresight. You're looking into the future. What does your practice look like? Where are you in?
Mm.
How many units do you have? Let's say 5 years in the future. Where is Innovative Endodontics? What stage is it at?
Yes. Well, I have big goals, big dreams. I've said for a long time I'd love to have 10 practices in 10 years, which for most people that sounds a little crazy, but I love it because it's challenging. I just think that there's so much opportunity to have impact. And if I'm not embracing that opportunity, then I'm not meeting my potential. So I would love to continue to expand the innovative endodontics footprint. I also have, goals and dreams of helping to mentor other people in our industry. I'd love to maybe do some practice coaching or personal coaching for other endodontists or dentists in the world. So I don't know what the future looks like exactly, but big goals that I plan to dream up. And if you ask me in a week, it might be a different answer. Um,
All right.
Working hard. I think I have something to bring to the industry. I'd love to strengthen the mindset of other dentists. I think that we, don't recognize how much we can achieve and accomplish. And so I'm just excited. I'm excited to stay committed to the field and hopefully offer something great.
Yeah. Well, I think that everything that you're saying is super achievable. From what I understand about the industry, is that there's a lot of venture capitalists coming in, buying dentist practices. I think that you, as somebody in the inside, right, that already has built three. I mean, there's so much potential, right, with a good sector, right, of or a whole generation of people kind of starting to look at retirement. The
Mm.
next 10 years, there's going to be definitely a good shift. So I don't see 10 as I see that, probably you said 10 in 10
Just the beginning.
years. I would say 10 in 5 years, it's super
All right.
achievable.
I like that
Yeah.
even better. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, Monica, it's been a true pleasure, really, to interview. Quite enjoyable. We really appreciate you sharing your insights and telling us a little bit more about your sector and how you manage your operation. It's truly inspiring. We wish you only but incredible success, continued success as you have been already. And then yeah, maybe sometime in the future we can maybe explore and how we can assist you or bring you some foundation for you to continue to grow your practices. I think that there's a lot of things in play that can definitely assist for that. So
Open
yeah,
to all suggestions. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
uh,
It's always good to talk business.
amazing. Well, hopefully we'll get to explore again sometime in the future. All right.
All right. Thank
Awesome.
y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome, Monica.